Welcome to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob, where you'll hear highly accomplished and fascinating guests talk about the challenges they've overcome and the winning mindsets that have led them to great success. And now your host, Dr. Bob.
Welcome to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. I recently met tonight's guest at a fundraiser in Malibu, California. She is a courageous, intelligent young lady who escaped from North Korea in 2007 when she was just 14 years old. She is going to talk with us today about the complicated and dangerous journey that led her from the hellhole of North Korea to freedom in the United States of America. Welcome to our show, Yeonmi.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Bob. It's an honor.
Please tell us about a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and a little bit about, maybe more than a little bit, about your journey that brought you here. Now, I know that many people might already know about you, but not all viewers know, and it would be great to have an introduction about the things that you've overcome to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I was born in North Korea, and I had a very average childhood in the North Korean standard, which meant I had a father, I had a mom, and I had an older sister, and living in the northern part of the town. And growing up in North Korea, I did not even know the existence of internet, and we didn't have like this 24-hour electricity. And daily life was really survivor. I was constantly hungry, and only source of food was, eating grasshoppers, dragonflies, and flowers and plants. And of course, we don't have a shower or running water. I would go to the river and bathe. North Koreans we don't even know what shower is. So we bathe in the summer, and in the winter we don't. So life is really almost like in the Middle Ages. We don't have the central heating. We have to go to mountain and looking for the wood and chop them and cook the meal. What you're describing, that would be the average life of an average Korean? Yeah.
Of North Korea.
It's very average middle class lifestyle is that, 97% North Korean roads are not paved. So I never even seen the cars with, AC or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And, even trains, people are not free there. So we don't even have the freedom to move to the next town. Not to mention living in the country. Mm-hmm. That we don't even have the freedom to go to the next town. And regime literally tells you what to wear, what to listen to, what to watch, what to read. They decide every aspect of your life. They even tell you what kind of haircut you can have. And that's how regime controls what you do, what you see, what you think even. And they even, in North Korea, a lot of words that we have here, they don't have it. Like the world love, liberty, human rights, and we don't even know that we are oppressed. And I never even seen the map of the world.
So you had no idea that there's another world outside of North Korea. Exactly. Where people lived a totally different way.
Yeah, right now here, people there may be other planet, there might be human beings, we have no clue. Like that, it was just completely unknown to us, living in that darkness. There's only one channel on TV, that is entire thing is propaganda. There's only one newspaper that's produced by the regime. I never even seen the Cook magazine, Living magazine, Home magazine, Fashion magazine. I don't even know what models are. Because in North Korea, everybody's revolutionary. You don't get to decide what you do. Depending on your ancestors, what they did during the revolution, they grade you in the different classes. So even the North Korea, what they say is a socialist paradise, they divided into 51 different classes between people.
And it was all based on people who are no longer alive even. It was based on ancestors or people who fought in the Korean War.
Before even that.
Before that.
Before the even 1920s and 30s. Mm-hmm. Great-grandfather was somehow landowner. They had some capital or some wealth. Then you are your oppressor. Now, therefore, you're in the bottom of the caste.
Even though it was your grandfather or great-grandfather
Yeah,
who
great
owned
grandfather.
property.
I never even heard of the person, but because it's called by guilty by association, you being associated to that person, you're guilty too.
And you can't change that.
No.
There's no way of changing
There's no-
your status or your caste.
So this is how evil the regime is. Even when you marry, like if somebody from lower class and man is coming from the top class, there's no such a thing called marrying up. That guy going down with the woman. So that's how they prevent the class mix. We don't
So
get
generally,
mixed.
the person from a higher class will not marry
No.
someone from a lower class.
If they do, they go down with them.
I see. Then their class is affected.
The whole family whole entire 3 generations of family get affected. So this is the thing. If you commit a crime, like in North Korea, when we say commit a crime, it's like literally seeing the portrait of Kim's house gets caught on fire, right? It get burned. That's a crime because you let the portraits of Kim's get burned. So that's why you get executed, and then the 3 generations of your family sent to prison camp for that crime. This is murder. Rape is not a crime in North Korea. That is not even considered something a bad thing. If you utter any word that shows a doubt or something about the regime, that is the heaviest crime you can commit. Your speech. So the first thing my mom told me was, don't even whisper because the birds and mice could hear you. And this is the first thing I learned as a younger. Like my tongue was the most dangerous thing I had in my body. And that's how regime makes sure that you don't even think such a thing.
So when did you decide that this burden was too great, that it just wasn't worth living in this country, and perhaps even if you were going to risk your life to escape, it was worth the risk? How did you decide that when you were 14 years old?
So actually I was 13 in 2007. I was like very small child still because I was so malnourished. But it wasn't like for me to even thinking, dying was not a big deal in North Korea. Like literally growing up there, I saw dead bodies on the streets every single day. My uncle died from starvation. My grandma died from starvation. Everybody died from starvation. In the 90s when I was growing up, and Kim Jong-il, he had a policy. As long as we keep the 10% alive in capital, we are not going to do a thing until the 90% all dies out from starvation. He thought it's easy to do socialist revolution when there are less people. So it was almost a kind of cleansing thing that they would abandon us to die. So in North Korea, like dying is not a big deal. And for me was at 13, I was just so hungry. And I thought I want to look for some food. And even if I die, I want to risk my life for just a bowl of rice. And that's how I initially decided to escape from North Korea.
And did you tell your parents that you were going to escape?
Yeah.
And what did they say to you? Did they encourage you or discourage you?
They said be careful because there was no way they could feed us. They couldn't find food even for themselves, right? I mean, they did everything they could. If we stayed behind, our fate was obvious. We were going to die from starvation.
I see. And your sister, who was a couple of years older than you, I think, she left home also, right?
So I was initially going to escape with her, but I got very, very sick. So she escaped first with her friend. And when I got out of the hospital, one day I just really got sick, and my parents took me to the hospital, which has like supposed free healthcare. Doctors even don't have like X-ray machines or anesthesia. They literally cut my belly open without any painkiller, and then luckily I survived. And when I got out, I found a note that my sister left me, saying, "Why don't you go find this lady who's gonna help you to go to China?" So that's how I knew who to find and where to go.
So you were going to take this risk to go from North Korea, a communist dictatorship, and you're going to escape to another communist dictatorship. Well, how's that any better?
I didn't even know what that was better. All I saw was, if you look at the picture of North Korea, It is literally the darkest place on earth.
Yes, I've
They do
seen
not have
the
a-
photographs taken from space.
Exactly.
Where
Yeah.
satellites from space, and you see South Korea is lit up. You can see that on the GPS photo, and you can see that North Korea is totally dark.
Yeah, the black hole, complete black hole. So China has some lights. So at night, I looked at lights coming from China, and I don't even know what that is. Like in North Korea, they don't teach you what communism anything is. They don't even show you the map of the world. I don't even know there are people exist outside of North Korea, and I just somehow thought there were lights coming from China at night, and I thought maybe if I go there, I might be able to find something to eat.
Okay, now I understand it. You saw
Yeah.
some light, which you never saw in North Korea.
Yeah.
So you said, oh, gotta be better than here.
Yeah, maybe
So-
they might have food. That's what I thought. Yeah.
So tell me what you did next. In the middle of the night, you packed up your small belongings or food. And what did you take with you?
I had nothing with me. I had zero things.
And you just walked toward the light? I mean, how close were you to China?
It
to
was
the border?
literally just one river across, but there are guards with the wire electrified fences, and they bury the landmines on it. So it's impossible to escape. So I found a note that my sister left, and I found a lady where my sister told me, go find that lady. So when I went and found the lady, she told me that she could help me to go to China.
And this lady, was she in North Korea
Yeah,
at the
she
time?
was North Korean,
So
yeah.
she's North
She was
Korean.
in our town.
And she knew somehow how to get out. And
Yeah.
you found her. Go ahead, tell me.
So I went that morning with my mother to go to the house of the lady, and then we asked her like how I'm looking for my sister, and she's like, I don't know your sister. It's like, it's okay, I'm trying to go to China too. You know, can you help me? And she's like, okay, I can help you. And that's when she introduced me a broker. A broker took us through the climbing multiple mountains, and then took us to the guard post where they bribe the guards. So we crossed the frozen river into China.
But how did you bribe the guards? With what did you bribe them? You had no money, and this lady
We
had
did not
no-
know, but somehow this lady bribed the guards with her money. And this is the thing, like when you're so desperate, I didn't even ask, why are you helping me? You know, it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
Even if she
As long as
kills
it's
me,
help.
I was gonna die anyway. You know, it doesn't really matter at that point. So she helped me to go to China. But as soon as I ended up in China, I found out why she helped me. Because she sold me into sex slavery. That's why
That's
she
where the
helped
money came from.
me. Yeah.
I see.
So these were human traffickers.
I see. So when you crossed the border, you did this by yourself, or
With
you
my
did?
mother.
Oh, your mother went with you. Okay, and you crossed the border. Somehow there were mountains or a stream, or
Yeah.
how long were you on foot to get
We
to
were
China?
like just one overnight, from
Oh.
the one afternoon to the night. And we got there and we crossed the frozen river into China. And the first thing that I see is my mom being raped in front of me. And then they took me to the house. And then they, checked my teeth and turned me around and negotiating my price. And I was so confused. I just never heard of human trafficking. In North Korea, the news is all happy news. They don't tell you crimes. It's a socialist paradise. How can you ever have a happy news? Bad news.
Bad news, sure.
So I don't know this kind of thing happened. And they told me that if we want to stay in China, that we had to be sold as sex slaves. And Chinese government, because of they have a good relationship with the dictator, they would catch us and send us back to North Korea, which is almost catching the Jewish people and sending them to gas chamber. Exact the same thing as a modern day Holocaust. So that's what they told us. If you want to stay here, you have to be sold.
Right, and if you weren't willing to do that, they'd send you back to North Korea.
But then there's death.
Death, right?
It's the absolute death. Yeah.
So where did they take you? And was there a house where men would visit and basically rape you? What happened?
So they were like a human trafficking different wings. So they were separating me from my mother then. So they sold my mom for $65 in 21st century. And they sold me over $200 because I was a virgin and I was 13 years old. So somehow virgin is expensive in China. more than my mom is. I mean, we're talking about human life. $300 is not expensive, but in China, that's our worth of North Korean women. And so they sold me to another human trafficker. Then that human trafficker sold me to another human trafficker. But every single time I go, I mean, this guy's trying to rape me. I fall like hell. And by the third trafficker, I couldn't fight anymore. So I was trying to kill myself. And he said if I become his mistress, that he was going to help me to save my family. Because he's the guy who sold my mom to a Chinese farmer who took my mom as a sex slave. So I decided if I sacrifice myself, I can help my family. I can bring them back. So I did become his mistress. So he raped me. And in a way, though, he still saved my family. He kept his promise. So he brought my mom back from the farmer that he sold. And he brought my sick father from North Korea. So
And how long were you with this guy?
over 1 year. Yeah, almost 2 years. Yeah.
And then?
So, and then there are 4 places usually North Korean women ending up in China. So there are right now, actually, by the way, 300,000 North Korean women like me just hiding there in China right now while we are speaking.
Say that again. How many?
300,000 of them. They're
People
all
who
young.
ran away from North Korea
From starvation.
and now they're in sex slave trade in China.
So 4 places, because of the one child policy by communist regime, they don't have enough girls. So 40 million men in China cannot find women. They cannot find wives. So first place where women ending up is with these men, be their sex slave. Sometimes in one village with 50, 100 men buy one girl and they rape her until she dies, and then they buy a new one. And or sometimes the brothers buy them, and then their cousins, their nephews share the family clan, share the woman. We are like product. We are an animal to them. Second place we ending up is a brothels, where they get these girls, and these girls refuse, so they give these girls drug, so they make them become drug addicts. So these girls will do anything for drug.
And that didn't happen to you.
Thankfully that didn't happen to me. So that's the second place they're ending up. The third place is actually organ harvesting. There's so much illegal organ happening. The China does that with their Falun Gong practitioners, the Xinjiang Uyghurs, and North Korean girls, the women, men are the same thing. They take us underground somewhere, take our organs out and kill us. This is genocide happening right now under CCP. The last place is where chat rooms. They lock us door, putting in the rooms, ask us to show our body, and then the men pay money through the website. So that's where I ended up eventually. So for me was
In the sex chat room.
yeah, but I was thinking at least nobody touching me physically. Nobody actually here is like no rape actually happening. So I consider myself very lucky that I ended up in a chat room. It could have a lot worse than that. So after this guy who bought me, he became bankrupt. He was a gambler. He was addicted to it, and somehow he still, in his own ways, he cared about me. He was letting me go, and I went to this chat room, and in that chat room, I heard about this thing called the South Korea, because the customers were South Koreans. They paid money to look at North Korean women naked. So I heard like South Korea actually free country. Just like, what do you mean free? And one of the defector friend told me that, in South Korea, you can wear jeans, you can watch K-dramas, and they don't arrest you for that. And I said, then how do I go there? It sounds like a wonderful place. How do I go there? Then it's like, missionaries who help you guys, and you need to talk to missionaries. So she gave me a number. So I dialed the number, and then over the phone, they said, do you want to go to South Korea? Like, we do. And it's, you risk your life. Like, we do know that. And I want to live life with dignity. Being fed was not enough. I had no dignity. I was a slave. And the missionaries took us into a shelter.
So you were able to leave the chat room life somehow.
Yeah.
Because the guy who owned you went bankrupt.
Yeah, he let me go.
And he let you go.
Yeah.
I see.
So I joined the missionaries, underground China. And in a few month period, they taught us about Bible. And they told us about the faith and Jesus and God. And few months of time, of course, we studied the Psalms, we studied all the Bible. And then they said, okay, now I think you guys proven your faith. And they told me how to go to South Korea. And that was, which means crossing literally frozen Gobi Desert from China to Mongolia in the minus 40 degrees in 2009. And
how old were you at this
by
point?
then I was 15 because I skipped at 13, and 2 years later I was 15 years old.
So for 2 years you were in captivity.
Yeah.
And barely getting enough to eat,
Yeah.
but being forced into sex or porn. I see. So now you're faced with this terrible trip across the Gobi Desert.
Yeah.
And from what I've read, the Gobi Desert is enormous.
Yeah, it's
and
enormous.
the narrowest part between Mongolia and China that you'd have to go through between China and South Korea is 300 miles.
Yeah, I don't even know how big it is, but you don't see the end of it. That's the thing. When I stood on the desert, I never seen like that. There's nothing tells you where you are. I think that's the hardest thing being in the desert is that without GPS,
It's like on the moon.
you just don't know if you're going straight or you went horizontally or you're going backwards. You can totally do just going circle and circle. You might not know if you're going straight because there's not one single tree or bush telling you where you are. It's all sand. Literally the flat land. It's like in the middle of the ocean, right? Like you just don't know if you are going straight or going backwards.
I understand. So how did you do it? I mean, these people, these missionaries must have gone with you. Is that correct?
No, they did not, because the chance of making it there is like 1%. Most of
So
people
they
don't
just
survive.
pointed you in a particular direction and said, walk?
That's why we needed God. They said, nobody can do this. We only need the grace of God. That's why you need to have a faith. You got to trust God, and you got to walk the desert. And then you believe in God, that they will save you. That's why we had to believe God.
Well, it's a lot of faith.
It's a lot of faith,
to
for
take that
sure.
first step. And
Yeah.
it's an incredible story. It's a little bit difficult for a Westerner to understand or to even accept. As you mentioned, you said it was freezing, below freezing, 40
It's
degrees.
minus 40 degrees.
Minus 40.
If you don't
And-
move 5 seconds, you die.
And-
Constantly have to move.
And what about clothing? They didn't give you a parka. What did they give you? How did you
I
survive?
didn't have. I just were wearing some like thin jacket, and like I don't have cover my ear, nothing, no gloves, and this is a miracle. That's why it's miracle. That's why you needed God. But they gave us one compass though, because we don't know which direction we go.
Yes.
So they said, get a compass. We gave us compass. Go follow the north and the east between this direction.
I understand.
And then go follow this direction, and if you cross 8 wire fences, that should be Mongolia. Then after you cross the wire fences, there's no normal people live there. It's like middle of desert, right? Then you need to go find the Mongolian border guards. And then just try not to get shot by them because they might shoot you. They think you might be animal or something. So like, tell them like that you are human.
And the political situation between Mongolia and China at that point was what? Mongolia was a independent country from China?
It is independent, but there's still really a lot of heavy pressure from China to, China is the biggest superpower, economic power. Everybody have to bow to them. So Mongolia was also not like strong against China at all.
But they were willing to take refugees, evidently.
They were not willing to, but we had to convince them.
Okay, so tell me now, let's say you've crossed those wires and you somehow found a Mongolian guard.
Yeah.
What happened then?
So actually when we were crossing desert, right, in the middle of desert, we cannot use a flashlight. It can show us our location to the guards if they see. So eventually I looked up the sky, and there was a bright northern star. So I said to my team, my mom, let's follow that star. So we followed literally a star in the middle of desert. Thankfully, that star didn't lead us to Mongolia. And in the morning, we got caught by the Mongolian guards. And when they caught us, they said they were going to send us back to Chinese side and then back to North Korea. And North Koreans, when we escape, like Jewish people, we bring our poisons and knives. It's better to kill yourself before the gas chamber, like before the torture and execution, right? They torture you unbelievable. You gotta just kill yourself. That's a fortune if you get a chance to kill yourself beforehand. So we all try to kill ourselves. And the last minute, the soldiers stopped us and like, okay, if you guys don't want to go back, we can help you to go to South Korea. And for them, it was like fun playing with us, our desperation. And after all that begging, they did eventually help us to reach the South Korean embassy. And South Korean embassy did a 3 month investigation on us.
And where did you live during that period?
In the different military detention centers, they were moving because we were in the border. So they were in this border. They take another military base. They investigate us to another place, and then eventually to Ulaanbaatar. And there we all these detention centers, like kind of prison.
Yes,
you have no
but
freedom.
at least it's heated.
No, but
heat.
at least they gave us a like little wood, like thing from the cement floor, and then like had some coverage, and then we have like. This Mongolia is freezing in the winter and no like hot shower, so they would let us to take a cold bath like once a week in the snow. But I mean, like at least we were alive. Nobody trying to rape us there. And then we had to do hard labor there too. Like we had to help the military base and farming because we were the prisoners for them. So we did all those assignments like prisoner schedule, and eventually when that our term was ended, they did send us to South Korea.
And I believe I read somewhere that South Korea does give citizenship to North Koreans who escape. And is that what happened with you?
Yes. Because Korea was a one country until the Korean War, right? So the South Korean Constitution says that anybody who was born in Korean Peninsula is our citizen.
Oh, good.
That's why.
Let me take a moment to digress from that story and ask you a few things here. Your English is remarkably good. Remarkably good. And I wonder how you learned English. Because I did read that when, unfortunately, your father was arrested for profiteering, for selling things on the black market, and that was I think, 9 years old or so. And because of his crime, you weren't allowed to go to school anymore in North Korea.
Yeah.
So you barely could speak or read Korean.
No.
And so how did you get to learn English and to be so articulate in getting your story across, getting your feelings across? I find it quite remarkable.
Thank you for your kind words. By the time I went to South Korea, they told me that English is an international language. And then I learned something called the alphabet. And then in my university here in South Korea, I was like 20 years old. They told me if you want to graduate from university, you have to have English proficiency. So I started teaching myself. I watched American TV shows, but eventually I listened to TED Talks, many English books, speeches, and YouTube is like free. Internet is free. Nowadays, learning things are so easy, so accessible. So I use the free internet resources and taught myself.
And who supported you during your time in South Korea? I understand the difficulties before that, but once they accepted you and perhaps gave you citizenship, how did you pay for things? How did you pay for school? How did you pay for clothes? How did you pay for food?
I worked in the dollar store. I was a teenager, so my mom had to give me a permit to work because I was a minor. Because I was like 15 years old. So I worked in the dollar store, like the waitress. So I study and I work, study and work. So I supported myself.
Remarkable perseverance and ability to overcome hardship is quite admirable, very admirable. So, okay, so you're in Korea. You went to high school there?
No, I did not. Because South Korean age, I was 17 years old.
Okay, too old for high school.
No, they did a placement test on me.
Oh.
And then I don't know even what Africa is. because I never
Right. You didn't
my
know anything.
knowledge.
You
is
knew
like,
North Korea. You knew the honorable leader or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all you knew.
yeah.
So you couldn't get into high school then.
Of course not. So they asked me to go study with a 7 years old. And I'm like 17 years old. I'm like, and that doesn't work. So I couldn't. So I had to teach myself. I caught up with 12 years education thing in 1 year. So I took GED. I don't know if you know what it is.
Yes.
So I took GED for entire education process. So 1 year later, I applied for university at 17. So I went to university. Yeah.
And you were accepted, not even finishing high school, but evidently you accomplished enough. You learned enough on your own.
I took GED. I passed.
The
I got
GED is an equivalent degree to high school. I
and
see.
the middle school because I didn't have any education. So I had to take the GED for entire education process because I didn't have any diploma. So you have to, if you want to go to the university, you need the middle school diploma, high school diploma, right? So I took the GED for middle school and high school and crammed everything within 1 year. Then I applied for university.
And which university accepted you?
It was number one major for the criminal justice major.
Oh.
So it was one of the top 10 universities in South Korea, but it was the number one for my major. So I was really lucky that I got accepted in one of the good institutes in South Korea.
And while you were in South Korea, did the citizens there, the South Koreans, did they treat you any differently, or did they tell us how
So
they
heavy discrimination. I remember the first day I got out from these centers in South Korea, right? They make sure that I'm not a spy. They make sure that I understand what democracy is. And then I didn't even at home, right? We don't have internet. At home, we literally at this public government housing that we allowed to stay for 6 months. We have nothing. We literally go to trash dump and pick up the mattress people throw away, pick up the plates or clothes they throw away. But I had no problem. There are perfectly fine clothes people were abandoning. So I was picking that up when I'm going home. And I was teenager, so I wanted to go to use the internet. And in South Korea, called internet cafes. You pay maybe $1 using 1 hour internet. And I went there, and I had an accent. So there's we don't accept foreigners. So I told them, look, I'm not a foreigner. I have South Korean citizenship. It's no, you're a foreigner, because I'm from North. So even though I had a citizenship because of my background, I could not even get into using an internet cafe. And of course, whenever I make friends, they ask me, are you a spy? Why are you talking to me? So I couldn't believe that my people, same Korean people, would discriminate me this way. I just never thought that would happen, but it was.
And how many years did you spend in university there? And your major was criminal justice?
Yes. So I studied it for 3.5 years in university and preparing for university. So I was there total 5 years in South Korea.
And then what?
And then I read this book one day in South Korea called Animal Farm by George Orwell. And that book changed my life. Until then, I did not understand what happened to my country. I just the hardest thing after all my journey was, how do I trust again? Because everything that I believe in North Korea was a lie, right? My dictators were dictators. They were not gods. They could not read my mind. They cannot do miracles, right? Whole thing was a lie. Then how do I know the people that what they are telling me is not a lie? There's no evidence about it. So I had this chaos in belief and trust. When I read that Animal Farm, I realized the price of silence. The majority of people, the animals, in the beginning, they know what was going on. My grandma knew the time before Kim's, knew the time before the Communist Revolution. They knew what life could have been, the alternative life could have been. I had no clue when it came to me. I did not even know that I was a slave. I did not even know that I was oppressed. So I couldn't fight. When you don't know you're a slave, how do you fight to be free? That's an impossibility. And that's when I was like, this is what happened. Everybody was responsible for creating this monster in North Korea, this dictatorship. And that's when I decided to speak out. And that led me to come to America to write a book.
Okay, let's talk about your path to America. It's not simple to come to America.
It's not.
From most foreign countries. Did you get a a tourist visa? Did you get a fiancé visa? What process did you use to get to America?
So luckily, I gave a speech in Dublin, in Ireland, in 2014 when I was 21 years old. I just turned 21. I gave a speech without knowing anything, but that speech became really viral. So it was viewed more than like 300 million views, almost like 1 billion views. So that caught a lot of publishers' eyes. And then for the first time, the world was hearing about what was happening inside the darkness. And then I got a book offer from Penguin Random House. And their main office was in Manhattan, New York. So they sponsored me. My visa is called the O1 visa. It's like extraordinary visa. And I got the O1 visa. So I had to pay taxes, obviously. I came here as a South Korean, but the process, the paperwork, I mean, just like insanity. But with all that process, I was able to come, and I'm very grateful. And then eventually I started studying at Columbia University. So that made me to stay here.
I've never heard of an O1 visa. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's something called like Justin Bieber visa. It's not something. So the visa that as a U.S. government perspective, they think this person can contribute to our country. It's like a human capital that we want. So they give it to scientists. They give a media personality like Justin Bieber. I think he came from Canada with O1. That's why there's like Justin Bieber visa.
I see. And it is not limited in time? It means you can stay?
It's I think maybe 3 to 8 years.
Okay.
But then you can apply for green card easily. So it's a lot hard to get the O1 than green card. Because not many people are like have a special skill sets they bring in. So US had this category where if you have a special skill set that we don't have here.
So you must have had a sponsor, somebody who really believed in you. Yes, you wrote a book, and it's very impressive to write a book in English when your native language is Korean. There's no doubt about that. That's very impressive. So can you tell us who it was?
Penguin Random House.
Okay. And there was no particular person that you want to give credit to for that?
I mean, there was a lot of people wrote the recommendation letter.
I see.
And also what helped me was when I was in South Korea, I got on the TV show. So I was talking about North Korea on the TV show. I was in the entertainment. And I think that really helped, that unique combination with the human rights and the TV personality. And I think that really, that unique background helped to get it.
So someone at Random House heard about you and then offered to help you write a book.
Yeah.
All right. So you must have had a ghostwriter with you, right?
Yeah, I had definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Most people don't write their own book, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, English is it's really hard to narrate a story.
Oh, sure. Makes perfect sense. So this ghostwriter listened to your stories and then wrote it together. Yeah, wrote it together.
Yeah,
I understand.
She was in Montana, so I went to Montana with her. So we were in a separate room. So I write the first draft, she writes it back, she sends me back, I write it back. So we did it back and forth. But now we have Google Docs. You don't have to write them back and forth. But back then I did not know, so we were doing a lot of writing back and forth together.
And during this period, did they give you an advance? I'm always, curious about how people make a living, especially during difficult times. So one of the aspects of my show, Life Lessons from Dr. Bob, is to delve into the difficulties that people overcame and the strengths that they had, or the personality characteristics that helped them to become successful. So how did you make do? Who paid your bills during this period? Who flew you around?
So I do speeches. I'm an activist. So they do pay your airfare and the hotel. But like the food, those things you have to pay. I mean, you're the human rights activist. So it's very different than other like jobs in the corporation. You don't get paid for a speech, right? When you give an interview to TED Talks, they don't pay you.
Oh, they don't? I didn't know that.
No. It's I think someone kind of against the thing. When you speak at the UN, obviously they don't pay you. But then they do pay your airplane tickets and sometimes car ride. But when you give an interview to New York Times or CNN, they don't even pay your taxi. You have to show up at the studio.
Show up.
Yeah, that's it.
I see. You're a commodity. They want you to be thankful that they're
giving the platform.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
hard
I
to make a
understand.
living when you're a human rights activist, even though you get a lot of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get paid,
Mm-hmm.
and but you don't fight for human rights for money, so kind of makes sense.
No, but still,
Yeah.
Life costs money. It costs
Exactly,
money,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Right? There are doctors and dentists and hairstylists that you have to go through. Okay, so you're in the U.S. How long before you met your husband, your
I
ex-husband?
met my ex-husband in 2016, so it was like a year and a half later. After I came to America, I wrote my book, and I was studying at Columbia University, and that's when I met him.
And you met? Was he in New York at the time at Columbia?
Yeah, no, he was not at Columbia, but he was visiting New York.
I see.
And we met at the birthday party.
I'm sorry it didn't work out. You were married for about 3 years.
Almost 5 years.
5 years. And do you think that your experiences, the difficulties in the early part of your life, and you're still in the early part of your life, by the way, you're 28 now?
27.
27.
Yeah.
Very early part of your life. Did those affect your ability to be a partner, to love somebody? What fell apart in your marriage?
I think many things, but the one thing that united us, that we both loved family. We wanted a family. So what I went through, it's not the hardest thing, but it is tough to thinking that you are the only one who may survive, right? Even when I spoke out here, like not speaking to you, because I spoke out, I'm not the only one who's getting on the Kim Jong-un's killing list. My three generations of family who got killed or disappeared, the same thing, they all disappeared. And it's an enormous price that I am paying every single day to speak out. And for anything to worth in life, right, you need to have a meaning. And I found the meaning through family. And so he somehow shared that. Like, it's unusual to find American man understands the meaning of tradition and family and those conservative values. So it was really good that
What's his name? What's his first name? Ezekiel.
It's he wants to be private.
Okay,
Yeah.
just first name. We'll call him Ezekiel. I think I
Yeah.
read that someplace.
Yeah,
Maybe it's his
yeah.
real name. Doesn't matter. So what happened? You were both committed to conservative thought and
Yeah.
conservative principles. Was he a Christian also?
He was.
Okay,
He was
or he is.
Christian, yeah.
And so you had that in common. You had your faith in common. You had your very strong interest in family. You have a child together. Sounds like it would work out.
Exactly. But he thought of me as an obstacle. That I was like, can we have a lunch at least once a month, just two of us? But it's like, I'm very busy. I'm like spending so much time with our son and work. Like, I don't have time for you. So for him was.
And you were living together at this point, right?
Yeah. But then we were like roommates, because we are co-sleeping with our son in the separate rooms. So it was, for him, was having a wife was like for the just sake of having a child. So for me was, I'm gaining a partner at the same time, because we love it, we're creating a family.
Sure, that's what marriage is about.
Exactly, but
Right.
his idea was like, actually, you just once you get married, why do you even stay in the same room? Let's sleep in a different room.
You didn't sleep in the same room?
No, we did not. So that's
Very curious.
exactly. But it's all I'm saying is, even those tradition values, family values met, but he thought that I was the obstacle for him to spend more time at work and with his son, which is our son. For me, is the fact that you're having good relationship with him is like for us to do something, a favor for our son, that he needs two happy parents, but he did not understand it.
So it sounds like he was the one who was unhappy with the relationship.
No, he was completely happy.
He was happy.
As long as I don't ask for him to hold my hands, as long as I don't ask him to get lunch with me, as long as I'm like just letting him be, he was perfectly. I wanted divorce. He did not want to. He wanted family, stay intact, but he just wanted me to not asking for any affection. He just wanted.
That's a very strange story. Very
It
strange.
is.
I feel badly for the two of you. So you had to file for divorce. Is that what happened?
Eventually, we both came to agreement. We did a mediation. We didn't go to court. It was not ugly divorce. It was very amicable. We still live in the same building. We still have respect for each other. In every way, he did his best, and I did my best. And nobody betrayed anybody. There was no cheating, none of that. Just purely how I wanted my husband to be or wife to be was just different. So it was, we tried our best. We almost tried 5 years being together. We gave our best shot.
Well, you're a very unusual lady. Usually when people get divorced, in the experiences, thank God, not personal experience, of the people that I've known or heard about, there's a fair amount of animosity, anger.
Yeah.
And I would think that you have a fair reason, good reasons to be angry. Angry at being led into a relationship that you were dreaming about, that he obviously promised you, and then he changed direction. It's highly unusual for people at that early stage of a marriage to sleep in separate rooms and to complain about spending too much time together. It's highly unusual. So you are a very kind soul. And that's another question that area I'd like to go into. I would think that people who go through the hardship that you've gone through would suffer emotionally from it. Someplace in your brain, in your heart, in your soul, you'd be filled with anger. And so it's quite incredible that you appear to be comfortable with yourself, comfortable with the world, comfortable with the divorce. I just want to let you know that's highly unusual. I've spoken to people who are Holocaust survivors, and they're damaged for life. But yet you have been able to overcome that, and you have a mission, and the mission is to speak out against oppression and against North Korea, obviously, but it's not just North Korea.
No.
You've told me over lunch about the fear that you have that America is in some sense heading in that direction.
For certainly heading there.
What you see happening in the world today, in America today, that the government is taking on more power every day, limiting freedoms. And I'd like you to go into that a bit.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. It was an irony, right? I began as an activist to fight for the people of North Korea and expose CCP to the world. I mean, people in America, day and night talking about racial injustice and slavery, how inhumane the slavery is. I agree. This is the worst thing that can happen to humanity, right?
You were one.
Yes, I know what it is. But then, why are you willing to talk about the slavery that happened here for many hundreds of years ago, but the one that is happening under CCP right now? These studios at Hollywood, corporation Nike, Adidas, I mean, all these people like LeBron James, they are working with CCP. Why? This is enslaving people and raping girls, killing women. And I think that the hypocrisy I got disgusted by. And I have done everything I could to convince the mainstream to hear us out. Like Michelle Obama have no problem with standing up for girls who were captured by ISIS or the Boko Haram. But nobody wants to, in Hollywood mainstream, standing up for the girls captured by Chinese. They do not just want it because it doesn't meet their political narrative. And not only that, now I have a son who is half white. Now, at Columbia, they talk about white guilt. Somehow, my son, who never asked to be born, who never even asked to be white, he gotta be answering for the slavery that happened how many hundreds years ago. This is exactly a dictator's playbook. This is what they do. They divide people, creating distrust people, hate people, right? And pronouns, at Columbia, I was thinking, even North Korea is not this crazy. Literally, this woke culture. What do you mean gender fluid? What do you mean man gives birth, right? And before I get to know people's names, now you have to memorize their pronouns.
Yes, I've seen business cards where people on their business card list their preferred pronoun.
On the business
the business card, right?
So this is the thing, what a waste of mental energy. Like, who cares you identify, say, like, what? Like, who are you as a character? What are you trying to do in this world? That's what that matters. Who cares what skin color you are? I mean, this is not the America I thought of.
True liberals do not care about skin color.
Yeah.
As Martin Luther King said, we care about the content of your character, not the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And that's
Like,
what
I
I
meant
believe in,
that.
and that's what true liberals believe in.
Yeah.
But now leftists, and I don't use the term liberal anymore because when I refer to leftists, I
Yeah.
refer to myself as a liberal, even though I'm a conservative on many things. I'm liberally open-minded on on most things.
Yeah.
But the left is not.
Yeah.
So when we refer to these people, I refer to them as leftists, and that's
Yeah.
what they are.
And they are out to get this country terrorized. I mean, I was at Columbia for 4 years, and I was like, finally, I'm going a place where you can learn how to think. I dreamed of education. This is all I
Yes,
wanted in my life.
you went for an education to learn how to think, not what to think.
But
And
this is-
that is
yeah.
so important, that distinction.
Yeah, yeah.
Learning how to think. And the way you learn how to think is having an open, inquisitive mind,
Mm-hmm.
reading as much as you can about both sides,
Yeah.
and not just one side. And then you can form your own opinion. But
Yeah.
now the educational system, it appears to me, is teaching what to think.
Yeah, that's brainwashing.
Yeah,
That's
you told me that
propaganda.
at Columbia, women you were talking to were talking about being oppressed.
Yeah,
Now, your story is one of oppression. Oppression of anybody, men, women, but in particular, the sex slave oppression of women. Women in America do they appear to be oppressed to you?
they say they're oppressed, and that's the thing. Like, their professor says in the class, "What do you think about men holding a door for you?" It's like, "Oh, that's nice as being a gentleman." But no, that's a sign of like toxic masculinity. They're trying to overpower you. This is how you look for like hidden infiltration of bigotry, and this is how you are being woke.
Microaggressions.
Yeah.
Microaggressions.
You have to be woke to look for this like a hidden oppression. This is not some game that you're playing. You have to look for the hidden bigotry and white supremacy. And every single class says how this country was built upon idea of bigotry and white supremacy, and how white man is the source of every single problem that we have. The only way that we can get rid of these problems is like tearing down this country. The best country I've ever seen in my life. They say the only way we can do this revolution is tearing down the USA and the Constitution. That's every single class ends with a note.
The classes you attended
course.
at an Ivy League school, Columbia University,
No matter the subject, even you study biology, you study science, you study math, every single thing, the professors got their opinions and tell you what to think.
their political opinions.
Yeah, but then like, how is it? I'm studying art, I'm studying music, I'm studying science, evolution, I'm studying different things, and they still tell you that. Not even one single class that wasn't propaganda.
So what can we do? What can people like you do?
Fight back. That is not enough for us to be like, right? Well, there was a thing say when they came for Jews, I wasn't Jew, so I didn't do anything. When they came for communists, I wasn't communist, I didn't do. My fear is that when nobody's free, imagine that, who's gonna fight for us? Puppies not gonna fight for us. I mean, people say, like, ask me, oh, why do I have to care for human rights, right? Why do I have to care about human rights? And then do we ever ask them, you have to care about puppies? We don't say that. Somehow, about anti-human sentiment in this world. Like, you know, if when we are not free, robots not gonna fight for us. Nobody's left to fight for us when we are not free. That is why it's our obligation to fight for the people who are oppressed. That's how only it works. I mean, that's the thing, like, how do we hold them accountable, anybody? So now in America, if America falls, nobody's free. Nobody's free on this earth. Nobody's left there to fight
Without
for
America.
liberty.
Without America.
This is the only country that built upon the ideology that individual liberty matters. They gave us a Second Amendment to defend us from the authoritarian, the corrupt government. No country on earth does that. Which constitution has that? Nobody. And this is the thing, I talk about this on my YouTube channels. I get censored. I'm like, if imagine North Koreans had the guns in their hand, how the heck dictator kills 3 to 8 generations of a family? I mean, these people have nothing to lose. They're gonna shoot them and then die, kill themselves, right? It's like, that's the thing. When you have nothing to lose, you're gonna fight. but only when you have the weapon to fight back. And Kim Jong-un has a gun. Why can I not have a gun? This is how it works. But these people don't get it. They don't understand the meaning of Second Amendment. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it just so breaks my heart. And because they've been like fish in the water, they don't know the life without freedom. They can't even imagine it. And that's why they are just so being idiotic. And I really worry that it's possible in America that we become like Venezuela. We become like China. We can totally elect a dictator, socialist dictator, and they're going to ruin everything.
Yes, I very much appreciate hearing your story, Yeonmi, and more importantly, I'm impressed with the fact that you have now dedicated your life to telling these stories and waking people up to the threat of dictatorship, to the beauty of what this country offers. And I wish you all the best in the life ahead, which is you have a full life ahead. And with your energy, and your ambition, and your ability to communicate, you will certainly be successful in elucidating to people and in waking people up, and perhaps they too will become activists like you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr. Ba. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. If you enjoyed these interviews with some of today's most influential thought leaders, please follow and rate the show on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget, you can also watch each episode on YouTube as well. We'll see you next time.